and it was lost actually in 2014. But that seed bank, which it's the name we call it is ICARDA, which is an acronym, ICARDA. They had made a backup copy of their collection at Svalbard. So when the scientists had to evacuate, leaving the collection in place, they were able to reconstitute the collection in two separate locations in Morocco and in Libya. And I don't know how those two those two new sets have fared in the recent floods and earthquakes. Right. But they were able to regenerate the collection and then actually grow out the crops far enough to get another set of seed to send back to Svalbard. I think they're almost completely have replenished their supply there. And there was a lot of controversy about Svalbard when it first went into being, that there were concerns, which, I think they're valid concerns and things we should always be mindful of, but that corporate interests or profit interests or, people wanting to control all these genetics in one place were behind this collection. And I think that has been proven otherwise, and that for the most part, there have been really good checks and balances. So only a depositor, so like the collection in Syria, only those authorized depositors can actually take out their authorized deposits. Like they can't take out anybody else's deposits. Not even the administrators at Svalbard can access the collections they hold there. So it's like a safety deposit box in what used to be, Switzerland. I mean, it still is Switzerland, but, a safety deposit box in a safe place that you have the key to.
The agricultural equivalent of a Swiss bank account.
Exactly. Yeah. When we thought Switzerland was neutral.
Right. Yes. We found
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if people are taking seeds out that shouldn't be, it could happen. But what interests me is the fact that Svalbard itself has come under some threat. My recollection is that it was subject to some flooding or something along those lines. Yeah, it was in danger because of climate change.
Well, yes, and thankfully no. It got a lot of press when the permafrost experienced some melting. I mean, the reason they chose the site is that it's one of the most globally stable sites of cold. And of course, cold and dark, stable conditions are your friends when it comes to storing seed for long term. Right. And but the construction of Svalbard is such that none of that melt got into came near the actual seed vaults. Okay. And so, while I can't guarantee you it's going to hold forever, I think it's one of our best chances.
Yeah. And as I understand, Svalbard is the furthest north, like continuously inhabited, like city in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah. Svalbard is the name of the archipelago, it's an island in that archipelago where the seed vault sits.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of Longyearbyen, which is in Svalbard, but that's a good place for it. So here's another question, and I think this gets at some of the corporate questions that we were alluding to. Can you own a seed, or can you own a particular kind of seed? And if so, why? And what impact does that have on how things work in agriculture and in the global ecosystem?
Right. And it's a good question, and it's a complicated answer in that if you ask me, no, you can't really own a seed. But if you ask the USDA in the patent office, yes, you can own a seed. Now, if the patent and or variety rights are being administered correctly, then in theory, you should not be able to obtain a utility right or a patent on a seed that would or could occur naturally. So, when you consider the beneficence of the plant systems on our planet and all that they have provided for us and given to us in common, including our seeds, it seems sort of counterintuitive to think that we would allow anyone to own a seed. And land-based peoples the world over cringe at this, just like they cringe at private land ownership. It contracts the commons. And so, but yes, as genetic modification and engineering has come online, as plant breeders have been working the world over to hybridize and breed interesting new plants or productive plants, in our privatized world, we have moved to a model wherein if you have worked to create a breed or a hybrid, and it has taken off, you have the patented rights to that seed.
And I'm curious. I'm thinking of this in U.S. terms, but to what extent is that seed patent system global? Is that universal, or are there exceptions?
It's pretty global. So when for instance, let's say many of these patents have gone to our 4 large pharmaceutical petrochemical companies who control something like 60% of our seed and something like 85% of all patented corn are owned by like Monsanto, Bayer Monsanto. Yeah. So most of these patents are going to people who are then producing seed that is in theory not allowed to be saved and then regrown again by anyone else. And these larger corporations have and do go after people for reproducing their patented seed in the world.
Right.
And the consequences, to answer that question, I'm sorry, I just jumped over you, but the consequences to that are that not only is our biodiversity contracting because of their choices on what we should or shouldn't eat and what they sell us and what's available in the market, and because we're destroying habitat, but they are contracting because of this ownership model that goes against all that civilizations have been progressed on over centuries, millennia.
Right. And the way these seeds are engineered, too, it's designed to lock farmers into their use because of the way they interact with pesticides. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So the, Roundup Ready corn, and at this point, the USDA and EPA believe that 100% of non-organic corn, no matter where it comes from, shows residue of this Roundup Ready pesticide systemically. And, whether it's Roundup exactly or just some of its active ingredients, it is very persistent in our environment. And so that prevalence is scary, and again, diminishes not only our ecosystem's health, but also our choices and control as people who eat, who restore ecosystems, who live in the world.
Yeah. It's also notable or noteworthy, probably more than noteworthy, that the way many of these companies came about, or what led into them in terms of, forming our countries, forming these corporations, is a bunch of Europeans going out and stealing seeds from indigenous peoples around the world and claiming them for their own, not just in the United States, but all over the world.
That's exactly right. And it is one of the most insidious forms of colonialism, if you ask me, especially after doing these research. And, you'll hear stories like the very famous seed keeper in India, Vandana Shiva. She coalesced a group of people who had to fight for, I think, 20 years to get the patent on the neem tree removed, a patent that was sought and granted to the United States government and one of these large petrochemical companies on the neem tree, which is a sacred and ancient plant in India, native plant of India, famous for its its pest-resistant oils, right. And it's medicinal, it's ritual, and the fact that we were ever granted a patent on it shows you the failures of oversight in such an overreach of a patent.
Well, that's a heartening story in the face of such pervasive patent capitalism. Is there a growing seed socialism that's rising up around the world?
Yeah. There is. There really, really is. And so if all of this research that I did about, pesticides and herbicides and poisoned seeds and poisoned ecosystems and corporate greed and consolidation were disheartening, it was the stories of people like Rowan White out of here in Northern California, who is the founder of the Indigenous Seed Keepers Alliance, or Kristen Leach and her group of second generation seed keepers who are really protecting and actually expanding the seeds of the Asian diaspora. And Ira Wallace and Chris Boldham Newsom down in the Southeast, who are working on seeds of the African diaspora, really trying to return and recover seed of their cultural heritage and get it replanted and regenerated and reshared in community. It was these seed keepers and this abundance of seed knowledge that is still out there, and we need to support it. That is what gave me hope. That and just the miraculous diversity of seed in our world. Just walking down your street, right? Walking on your trails in the Willamette Valley there, or the Rogue Valley.
Right, right. Exactly. We're a little drier than the Willamette Valley.
Right, okay. But just like that diversity of native plant seed that's reproducing all the time, every year, and we fail to see it so often. Just that level of appreciation gave me hope.
That's awesome. And I will tell you, we were, speaking of, we were starting by talking about wildfires and wildfire smoke. Our place burned down in the Alameda fire in 2020. And one of the things that I miss most about not living in that place anymore is that we had a hazelnut tree that every year at this time of year would just drop so many wonderful hazelnuts, and we would take them and we would roast them and eat them and give them to friends and let them pick up some of them. And it's while there are still plenty of those trees in the valley, it strikes me that those things are precious. I mean, they're precious to us as human beings, in addition to being precious to the wider environment. And it really is incumbent upon us to make great efforts in order to protect them and perpetuate them, because they're important, and they mean something to us, and they mean something to every living thing. Jennifer Jewell, thank you so much for being here. Again, the book, Cultivating Place, is the name of your podcast, and What We Sow on the Personal, Ecological, and Cultural Significance of Seeds is the book. Please check that out. Thank you so much for being with us today on Facepalm America.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting me. It was a pleasure to make your acquaintance and chat about these things we clearly both care a lot about.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. This program has been produced by Ace Elson and Rosabelle Hine. If you would like more information, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you can go to facepalmamerica.com, and you can message and call us anytime at 202-656-6271. And until next time, enjoy the day.